Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Fleeting Thoughts, an altered TCG podcast, part of the Maindeck podcast family. I'm Dan.
And I'm Jordan. And today we come at you with our experiences, or I think you didn't get a chance to play it quite yet, but my experiences, you have? Oh, that's good. I'm excited to hear what you did. But for the pre-release and our general impressions on the Trial by Frost set, now that it is now, as of filming, tomorrow is the official release date, but as you know, with pre-releases, everyone is going to know all the cards by now and had a good experience playing with them at your local card shop once or twice.
Jordan, I'm undefeated in Trial by Frost pre-release.
Oh, snap.
Yep. One local pre-release, and then I got to play one game in the Equinox studio last week as well, which I also won. And all of my wins are basically off the back of the tree, the tree that makes moths whenever you exhaust something in reserve. It's really sick. Well, once per turn, but like, yeah. Yes, we'll talk all about that. We'll talk a little bit about our Equinox studio trip as well, which I think will be really fun. Jordan, unfortunately, was unable to attend that. Again, but eventually we'll get Jordan to something.
Yeah, it actually worked out for the best this time because the day you guys landed, I ended up getting like cripplingly sick, like the most sick I've been in recent memory since I was like a child. It was like really bad. So had I did go, I would have got on the plane and then started feeling terrible as we were landing. And then like the first night we got to what you guys would have got to your first hotel, I would have been like bedridden and unable to like leave the room. So
yeah,
a small silver lining to me not being able to go, but I would have much rather been healthy and then had been able to make it to the trip. But
Yep. Oh, well, that's very unfortunate. I'm sorry. I'm glad you're feeling a bit better now. But yeah, so for people who aren't aware, we had a group that went to Europe for about 10 days in January, and we had two purposes. We were playing Grand Archive, which we did at the front end and the back end. We played a regional in the first weekend, and then an Ascent, which is a higher level event in that game, at the back end. And in the middle, we thought, well, we're in Europe, so let's just go to Paris and we'll meet with Equinox. And we did exactly that. We head over to the Equinox studio for a day. Well, just for a little chunk of a day. They're very busy there, by the way, extremely busy. So we didn't get to like totally throw off their flow or anything, but Loki was there to meet us. Set us up with some Trial by Frost boosters, and we got to do sort of an in-house little game sesh with Trial by Frost. That was a ton of fun. And then we went and we had actually Loki then took us after he was done working and took us to this little hidden bar, which apparently is a thing that's like not all that uncommon in Paris. We went to this taqueria where we then went we basically all walked into what looked like a little like mirror closet thing. And it was actually some hidden European death stairs, which are, by the way, every place in Europe has death stairs. It's horribly, horribly dangerous, I think, but whatever. We walked down these little spiral death stairs into the swankiest little lounge that was down there with a bar and a guy, and like there was like one other person there when we got there or whatever, and we all just kind of sat down and had some really, really ritzy drinks and just chatted for a while. So that was a really cool experience. And then the next day we went with Loki, Yoshi from the story team, and Moon, who is a new what's her exact title? She's not like Loki. Well, she's maybe social media manager also. I think Loki's role is changing a little, but I don't remember for sure. I might be misplacing her role. But we all went to get ramen at the best ramen I've ever had in my life in this place that Loki and Yoshi were highly recommending. So that was a ton of fun too. And that was basically our trip with them, but it was yeah, it was a great time. Um, don't have a ton to say other than we got to play some Trial by Frost and we ate some really good food and had fun. But yeah, that was it.
That sounds super sick. I'm really sad that I was not able to make it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Let me tell you, Jordan, though, I did ask Yoshi one thing. Because you and I in this podcast, what we like to do a lot of the time is we'll talk about the lore a little bit, we'll talk about the story, and then we'll speculate. We'll be like, maybe at some point we'll see this faction and it'll be like this type of card, they'll have this thing or whatever. So I hit Yoshi since I had him there. We were walking to the ramen place. I said, all right, so Yoshi, I know you've listened to our podcast. I know you've heard our wild speculation. You don't have to tell me what, but have we ever gotten any speculation right for as far as where you're going with this? And he had a sort of a complex answer, but he said, I wouldn't, to paraphrase, he said, I wouldn't say exactly right, but I've been surprised or impressed or something a couple of times when you've gotten in sort of the ballpark of like where something is kind of starting to head. And I just felt really good about that.
Awesome. I'm excited to know which bits of those are close to the nail. We'll find out hopefully sometime in the next year or two after the next couple seconds.
Yeah. Hopefully. But that you guys heard it here first. Fleeting Thoughts is the leading speculative podcast for Altered TCG, where we have the narrative figured out sometimes. A little bit. But yeah, okay. So that was kind of my trip then, Jordan. And Jordan, what you at home, you were, I'm sure, hanging out after you're done being sick. You were playing some sick 2v2 or whatever you're doing, and then you had your pre-release.
That is correct. But before we get into any details on that, Dan, I think you might have something for the viewers. Any
all right,
interesting tidbits?
If you're ready for me.
Yeah, before we get too deep in the nitty gritty, I thought we might as well touch base on that.
Yeah, we'll just mention that if you guys do enjoy Fleeting Thoughts, an Altered TCG podcast, part of the Maindeck podcast family, and one of the few Altered TCG podcasts out there. There's a chunk of them now, but if you appreciate everything we bring to the table, we really do appreciate you if you go ahead and leave a like on the video down below, or leave a 5-star rating on the podcast platform you're listening to it on, or go ahead and leave a comment as well. Let us know what you think about Trial by Frost, or what you think about ramen. That I had some really good ramen. Let me know. Have you had some really good ramen? Leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear from that. And then if you do appreciate that and want to support us in like a financial way, there are two really good ways you can do that. If you play other TCGs, use our affiliate link anytime you shop for singles on TCG Player. That's bit.ly/shoptcgs to get a little kickback towards us. And if you're looking for Trial by Frost product, and you live in the States, we're shipping to the States, you can go to our LGS, jwwcards.com, who's a huge sponsor of Maindeck, and you can buy some Trial by Frost at a great deal there because you get discount code Maindeck for 5% off whatever price we have listed there as well. Link to that will also be in the description of the video. Get your product and pull some really sick uniques at a good deal. So thank you all so much for all of your support. Okay, Jordan, tell us about your experience so far with Trial by Frost. What have you been up to? What's been working? What you've been liking?
Yeah. So the days leading up to the Trial by Frost pre-release, when I wasn't sick, we did indeed play a round of 2v2s. It was pretty sick. I think we played 3 full games that night. And this was before Trial by Frost came out, so it was our last kind of hurrah with the last set. Just playing some epic 2v2s. Nothing super crazy really happened. It was just the classic 2v2 fun. And then pre-release weekend happened. And sadly and unsadly, it was actually my birthday on pre-release day proper. So I had people coming in from out of town, so I didn't get to do the pre-release that Friday or the Saturday, and I was a little sad because the Saturday was actually drafting day. So my local store actually had 3 pre-release events. So they did sealed, draft, sealed. But we did make it to the Sunday sealed event, and that was when we got to first crack open our packs, and that was really really sick. I made probably the dumbest play mistake blunder that I've made in a long time in cards. Probably since the forgetting to draw debacle was the last time I made a really bad play mistake. But I had a geyser. I basically had on board to win, and they had 4 mana, and I geysered the thing that they played that turn, which cost 4, and then they just spent 4 and replayed it.
No, Jordan.
It gets worse. It gets worse. It would have been the turn I would have won. They had an Icebound Spire, I think, the one that gets a counter when you play something with fleeting.
No, Jordan.
So then they're like, I play this and give this fleeting and spawn a dragon and win both sides and win the game. And I was like,
my God, Jordan.
what have I done? I was just so excited to use the guys because going into that turn, I was like, oh, I got removal because they put down, so they had 1 card, and I was like, this is going to be the easiest. I have the removal for the one thing they're going to play. I just have to remove it and play my dude. It's over. And then I forgot it bounces to hand until after I'd already played it and bounced it, and I was like, oh wait, no, wait, please stop. I'm dumb. No.
Oh my goodness, that's funny.
Yeah, but I was just so excited about Geyser because I love the mana ramp, and I was like, it's removal and mana ramp. Let's go.
Yeah, Geyser's really sick. That's a really strong card.
And in my first pull, I got 3 Leshies. I got 2 Mana Flares to easily play Leshies. I got 4 Geysers.
Okay.
So that was like the sickest play. I don't even remember what else was there. I had another blunder just because I wanted a player, but I had a Frost Queen, and there was one game that was like, oh, I can Frost Queen here to set up for next turn, and then they got rid of it immediately, and I spent my whole turn playing it, and I was like, I had a better play, but I was like, I haven't got to play Frost Queen all night. I want to play her at least once, and then it was bad.
That is exactly what happened when I played Frost Queen too. Thankfully, though, I had the Nilam with her tree out, so I got a Moth as well when I played. I had the rare Frost Queen, so I got to exhaust something when I played it. And then it was basically their whole turn removing my Frost Queen. So I had the Moth. Right. So I had the advantage at least, but, yeah, that's really sweet. And you said 3 Leshies?
I had 3 Leshies, 2 Muna and 1 Bravos one.
Leshy was definitely really strong for me every time I was playing.
It sure was. I think the lowest amount of buffs I ever got on it was 2. And there's multiple times I got 3 or 4, and it was very good, and especially with being able to play with Mana Flare, that was so good. It was like, here's a Leshy. And then at one point, I was actually fighting my wife in this one, and she exhausted my Leshy, and she was like, I don't want you playing him again. And I was like, well, I got bad news. And I played another one from my hand. So then she was like, oh, okay, I guess I lose.
Yeah. I definitely had some 4 buff Leshies going around. They were 4 boost Leshies were pretty sick. That's pretty powerful.
I gave mine an energy bar one time. It was really good.
Ooh, energized Leshy. I love it. Yeah. So let's see. I guess I'll go over just a couple of specific things that I did in some of my sort of pre-release event things. And then let's just maybe give our takes on things that kind of like surprised us or impressed us or didn't impress us or whatever. But I had, like I said, I played exclusively Nilam decks. I don't know why. I just kept opening the Nilam, and how do you not play it? It's really good. The first time I played, the one in the Equinox studio, I was playing a Fen and Crowbar deck. So I was just reserving a lot of cards, resupplying a whole lot. And I just had it's great to play landmarks out of resupply. And I had I won with the Magic Slay that game, which was really, really fun. The Magic Slay was like super sick. which Magic Slay. There's so many new cards. I should say what they do. Magic Slay allows you to. The one I was using was 4 cost without fleeting. That is, if you win on this side, it's an expedition permanent. If you win on this side, you double advance. That card I think is pretty awesome. Actually, it's like pretty potent.
Agree with you. It seems really strong. I like it a lot. And the rare version, like it gets fleeting no matter where you play it from, but it doesn't matter because it costs less, which makes it easier to get out and advance too. Like, it just seems very good.
And I had some really sick plays with like cooldown spells and Rocket Puffin, I believe is his name, which is an Axiom character that comes in and lets you ready an exhausted card in your reserve. So you can you can. So that's it. I was using oh shoot, what's it called? It's the I'll pull it up here, but it's the new spell that allows you to sack a card from reserve to
Joyride.
buff up Joyride. That's it. Yeah. So I had multiple Joyrides in this deck. The cooldown ones, not the rare one. Which I love. I got to Joyride something, discard a card from reserve to give a character 2 boosts, and then play the Puffin, and then ready the cooldown Joyride, and then Joyride another thing because Fen and Crowbar just let me have so many cards in reserve, so I was like able to kind of set this all up. And there was like this line. I don't remember what my opponent played, but he played like just some huge stats, and he was like, "All right, get through this." And I'm like, "I got this!" Like combo, boom, boom, Joyride everywhere, and was able to get through. So that was really sick. And then our actual pre-release, I was playing Sierra and Oddball with the Nilam, which is a nice combo. I wish I had the rare Nilam, is the only thing, instead of the common one. So I wish I had the common Nilam instead of the rare. I mixed it around. The thing that's interesting about Nilam is that the rare one is it only costs 3 and it doesn't exhaust anything when it comes into play. And the common one costs 4 and does exhaust something. So it's an interesting way they're using rares in this set now, where it's like, instead of just being like, oh, it does more and costs more, the common one is the one that actually does more stuff. But if you want the cost to be more efficient, you can get that in the rare. You just lose the when played from anywhere exhaust target card in reserve. But in Sierra, that actually makes it so that when you play the Nilam, you get to get a Brass Bug from Sierra on the common version, and then still exhaust something, and then exhaust the Nilam to get the Mana Moth as well. So you can get a 4/4/4 on the turn you're playing this landmark, which is like, or 2/2/2/2s or whatever. But that's actually really cool. That allows you to basically keep up with the cost. So I only had the rare one in my Sierra deck, which every time I turn one Nilam'd, I put a 2/2/2 out, and my opponent had like a 2/3/2 or something, and was like, blank your turn. And I was like, fair. All right. But otherwise, then just having Nilam out, man, I exhausted so many things. I had Jack Frost, which is play from anywhere, the rare one, play from anywhere, exhaust stuff. And I was just controlling my opponent's stuff and putting 2/2/2 Mana Moths into play. And just like, I had one game where this was my game against Corgan, who is probably one of our most invested local players. I thought by turn 3 or whatever, I think I was like, this is unwinnable. He destroyed me. He was using the Expedition Permanent. Is it the energy bar? I think that makes it a gigantic.
Yep.
Yeah, Eat Me Energy Bar. So he was using Eat Me Energy Bar, and he just had this setup with his cards where like he just was like double advancing 2 turns in a row, and was like just dominating me with using the energy bar to make it so I just had nothing I could really do on that side. I don't remember the exact sequence of characters he used with it, but it was like, yeah, it was wild. And Crush was crushing me, and somehow I just clawed back into the game and ended up winning it. I wish I remembered more specifics, because it was a really, really excellent game where there were some like tight decisions that we both had to make at the end, and I just managed to pull it together. But every single game, I was like starting off I was finding the Nilam and getting the Nilam out, and then I would just get to this point in the game where I could just kind of control all the action a little bit with the resupply exhaustion, and then just put out a bunch of brass bug here, 2/2/2 here, get the dragon. Ultimately, I had a couple of the Icebound sites, which were really good every single time. But it's in Sierra, it's really sick to get the 2/2/2 the turn you play it, and then get the 5/5/5 at a couple turns as well.
Yeah, I was really impressed by them. I'm hoping that they're just as like splashable as we were hoping they'd be in Constructed. Because in Sealed, the Icebound locations I thought were very refreshing. They were nice. They didn't feel too expensive. They felt useful enough for their cost eventually. And they added interesting play patterns and like sort of like a pseudo clock. If you had it against you, like I got to deal with this, but I got a couple turns. Or like, sometimes if I knew they were going to pop it, I would just forfeit the turn basically because I already knew it was a losing battle. But then I could posture myself using the gear to set up my next turn. So I just like play a gear because I already knew I was losing this round. And then next round, I didn't have to pay for the gear and a character because the gear's already on the field because I knew I was going to lose.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in general, like, I loved the play patterns that were created by the new cards in the set, and especially the landmarks and the expedition permanents. Felt very different than Beyond the Gates play patterns. Refreshing was a perfect word to use. It was really exciting to see some of the things that were happening in the game after several months of Beyond the Gates. And I'm really, really pumped to see the other stuff that's coming. It makes me like this. I guess I was going to save this towards the end, but I'll just say it right now. Like, this expansion really makes me feel good and excited about what we're going to see with future sets, even if they're not going to put new characters in every set, which is something that I thought I wanted to see. I was fine with it because it still felt like a big enough kind of refresh to how I played the game, at least in the Sealed. And we have to see how that plays out in Constructed.
Yeah, I'm very excited to construction decks. Actually, me and my wife tomorrow are planning on finishing our sorting of all the stuff we opened, and she's excited to be like, I want to make my own deck now. Like, I'm ready because she's finally played enough to where she feels comfortable enough with the cards where she's like, I want to build my own instead of just using yours. And I'm excited because there's already a handful of decks where I'm like, this is going to be sick. I want to make a deck with this, this, and that. So I'm excited. The new set is very exciting.
Very, very good. Before we move into just like our general thoughts, I have to go through my favorite thing that happened in the pre-release, my favorite kind of sequence of cards. And it's not because it's like an inordinately strong sequence. It was just like a really funny line of like trigger, 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 trigger. That was just like, it was really, I just really enjoyed it. So the setup for this, and I'll have the cards all displayed on the video version of the podcast, but also explain what each card does as I go through it. Was I had a Yeti in play, who the common version 3/4/2/2/2 with when played from hand, I gain a sleep. And when another character joins your expeditions, it gains 1 boost. So I had it played from the previous round. So it was in play this day without a sleep. And I had all my mana available. And I had the Nilam in play, which, again, when something's exhausted in reserve, I get to exhaust it to make a mana moth. So what happens is, and my deck is Muna, Izmir, Axiom, which is the only way that this combo like ever happens in the first place.
I feel like I know what you're about to say.
Okay, so on my turn, I pay 1 mana to play the Machine in the Ice, which is a 1 from hand, 3 from reserve, 5/3/5, which says when I go to reserve from anywhere, exhaust me, and then when played from hand, send me to reserve. Okay, so here's how this works. I play the Machine in the Ice from hand. The Yeti gives it a boost. It's a 6/4/6. It's played from hand, so it sends to reserve. So now it goes to reserve. It goes to reserve, it loses the boost, but when it goes to reserve, it exhausts. it's in reserve and it exhausts, so it triggers the Neelam. So I exhaust Neelam to make a Manamoth. The Manamoth comes into play, and then Yeti gives it a boost. It was like the sequence of like 7 triggers happening in a row to ultimately give me a 3/3/3. And it was just really funny. Like I just had to step through with my opponent. It was like, this goes here, and then this goes on, and then it goes here, and then this happens, and I exhaust this, and then this goes into play, and this gets the thing. And it just made me smile. It was just a very, very silly thing that I had fun with. And that's the kind of stuff that I really like about like the faction mixing that just makes that all happen. But I do want to say that I thought the Machine in the Ice was a really cool card too.
I like that card a lot, and the art on it is super sick.
Yeah, it's very, very sick art, and it just is it's just like big stats and kind of fun and weird, and like it's a very good Axiom card because it's like you look at this and you're like, how does that work? How can I make this thing like what kind of contraption can I put together to make this good? Like if you're an Axiom engineer faction fan, you should see that card and immediately go like cogs turn in your head like I got to make this good.
Yeah, and one other great thing that I forgot to mention, as we all know, I said last time, I really like the idea of Amarok. Well, the first unique I pulled during the first sealed event was an Izmir Amarok, and it is sick. I almost said a swear word. I'm sorry. It was like one of the more sick uniques I pulled. So it has like, I think it's pretty close, if I remember correctly, to the regular Amarok stat line. So it's like 5/4. I think it's 5/4/3 instead of 5/4/4. Plays for, I believe, 3 and 3. It does not have any cost reduction when played alone, but instead, if played alone, you just discard a character that costs 3 or less. So it just, you play him, he has good stats for a 3 cost, and delete something. And that's not when played from hand, that's when played from anywhere. So then when he goes to reserve, you just delete something again when you play him again. Wow. And he was insane. And since he was 3 cost, I was able to play Eros and play him for free, delete something and give him 2 boosts.
That's
and it was
rude.
Like, and he's a turn 1 play. So I was playing Akasha. So I'd just be like, after you, they'd play their one thing for the turn. If I ever got him turn 1, I'm like, yeah, delete that thing, and I'm winning on this side.
That with Akesha, that is really mean. Like, no, please go ahead. And then play whatever.
It also, the other thing was just its basic ability, which is if you play anything in that area, you sacrifice it. But it was the Bravos rare version of it instead. So it also gains a 1 boost. So if I ever play it in a Lindy deck, I have easy ways to sack stuff that'll boost the Ma, and it boosts the Amarok when it dies. So it's like, this unique was like, unique. Yeah, the unique, I was like, yo, I finally got like a really good unique. And it was one of the only cards that I was like, I love this card in the art. I want to get a unique of it.
The uniques I opened in my pre-releases were all very, very mid to bad uniques. Unfortunately, they were in the like, wow, this is a Daring Porter that resupplies instead of I can't even remember what he does, honestly. It was like I'm pulling the Daring Porter up here and it'll just, it's like instead of exhausted resupply, he just resupplies. And I was like, okay. Like, cool, I guess. And the last thing I want to mention, just because it's important, it's very important, Jordan, I had Snow Maiden rare in my pre-release, and I won 2 games playing it on the final turn for 4 as a 6/6/6. It was like, you may exhausted resupply twice, and they were like, all right, I guess I will, and then pass. Yes. It was as good as I thought. As it's big stats. It's just huge stats, and that's great.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I'm very excited to see more uniques and more stuff. Before we transition to just our overall thoughts on the set, even though we've kind of already started that, is there any last pre-release specific stuff you want to talk about?
No, I mean, I think I hit all the moments that I played, and someone's got to defeat me though. My head's getting too big. I'm so good at Trial by Frost pre-release.
Yeah, the only thing else I wanted to mention about the pre-releases was the like participation bonus stuff you got for entering the
Oh,
pre-release. The new land cards I think are excellent. They look very good, and the fact that you get the cool hard
mm,
plastic ones just makes it feel more premium. And the first player token for the second set looks really good. I didn't realize how good it was
yeah.
going to look until I opened it and saw the flip side, and I was like, that looks very clean and crisp, and I love the coloration on it. It's very nice.
Yeah, we got so many of those. Uh which is so like our order was huge for our store. So we got like a million of them. Which is cool because we were able to add them in as prizes to the Trial by Frost League that we just started on the main deck Discord. So I just guess this is a good time to throw this out as well. If you are looking to play more Trial by Frost, you want to play more Altered with people, our league is starting up. Oh, actually, I don't even know because league manager runs it, so I should probably give you the date here. Hang on. Um, our Corgan, who I already mentioned, is actually our league manager, and he is the one who kind of takes care of making sure everything's running like clockwork now, which is great. Yes, it is starting February 9th. Sorry, February 3rd. Excuse me, February 3rd. Monday, February 3rd is the start. So next Monday, or actually that'll be yesterday as of when this is releasing. Um, but you can join at any point in time. I don't care when you're listening to this. I guess if you're listening to this March, that's the only time it's too late. Other or March or later, but otherwise, if you're listening to this anytime in February, you can still join the league. Hop into the main deck Discord. Link is in the description of this video. Um, and then you can join totally free, no matter where you live. And you can actually play either webcam games or we've opened up Board Game Arena for this as well. Trial by Frost is legal. You need to own the cards digitally to play. That's really it. Um, and then there are random giveaways of Trial by Frost packs, Trial by Frost promo packs, and Trial by Frost player markers. And anyone who plays at least 9 games in the league will get a Trial by Frost player marker and 2 promo packs sent your way. So yeah, that's I guess just a little shill for the league, but definitely hop in there and help us use up some of our extra really sick player markers. And hope you guys have a lot of fun playing.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff. So,
Okay,
impressions
Jordan.
on the full set.
Yeah. So I mean, you and I saw a lot of the spoilers, and we're seeing. We had a previous episode where we talked about the mechanics in Trial by Frost, and we gave a little bit of speculation about how we felt things would play. Now that you've gotten a chance to dig into at least a good chunk of like some sealed and stuff, how are you feeling about Trial by Frost in general?
In general, Trial by Frost in a Vacuum, I think, was very enticing to play. Like I said, we mentioned that it was like some of the cards and like the play lines opened up very differently. It was very refreshing. I do feel like it was there was a few interesting points that I guess I, not really pre-release specific, but certain characters didn't get reprinted. One in each faction did not get reprinted in this, which I thought was interesting. Um,
Mm-hmm.
not like I'm not sure exactly why some were left out or not, but it's an interesting fact that it's there. It changed the pre-release pools and how you kind of approach that. It's interesting that there was no sabotage. I guess this is also kind of a pre-release note, but making the sealed very different because there were certain aspects that were just not really present, which made the play patterns different. And I'm excited to see how blending both of them together is going to be. Specifically, I know there's already been a bunch of rule questions and some clarifications on the big can of worms that was having an item that can add certain keywords to other stuff that weren't necessarily intended to, that are now having weird
Sure.
effects, like specifically the energy bar that adds gigantic to stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as a part
I
of
we
the
we
sorry.
had that come up. We had that. Sorry. I just want to say we had that specific scenario come up where I'm forgetting the name of it, but there's the unit that says I have defender, but in my expedition, if I'm behind, I don't have defender, or it doesn't affect the defender doesn't affect you. And he had that out with the energy bars. So it was gigantic. So it was in both expeditions. had defender in both, but he was behind in one expedition and not in the other. And we were like, I'm not 100% positive I know how to resolve where you can move right now.
Yeah, so a day after pre-releases started, they released like not an errata, but like an expansion to the rules compendium that had like a bunch of clarifying notes specifically about Gigantic. But there is one that I noticed hasn't been addressed, and I haven't seen asked anywhere.
Ooh.
I'm probably going to pose it. I looked in the comprehensive rules, and the way I would rule it if I was a judge, based on how the rules are currently written, is so specifically set one, Bravos version of Sakabaru. Its ability specifically just says the expedition facing me goes back one. And currently, how it's written with their new clarifications, Gigantic specifically states that both sides count as being against you.
Yep.
So if you had the bar on the field and you played Sakabru into that area and it was the only character, it's on enter reads the expedition facing, which now is both sides. So unless they do a clarification, the way it's written in the rule book, that should technically push both sides back because both sides are considered facing the soccer brew at that moment.
That's a Gigantic is I am present in both expeditions.
Yeah, and they specifically made the clarifier with their new like expansion. They specifically say in the text now that both sides count as opposing your expedition for that character and its effects.
Opposing or facing? Is that, I think like it comes down
Sorry,
to
the facing.
Okay.
So since it says they're both facing you now, and Sakabrew's text doesn't say like, it specifically says the expedition facing me goes back. Now both of them are facing him because he's gigantic.
Yeah.
It should push both of them back. But that feels way too powerful because Sakabrew also has big stats. So if you have the ability to play that, you just pushed them back 2 times and are most likely going to win on both sides because you have a large body counting in both sides now too.
I think he's only a 4/4/4 for 7. So I think it's reasonable that your opponent will beat you on one of the sides, but I still think it's absurd if that's true. Is like you push them back twice and then probably win one of the sides still. Is like, what an insane push ahead. Like, and yeah, kind of want to build that if that's if that's true. That seems really good.
Yeah, I was gonna post it in the like rules posting here like sometime today. Now that I don't work tomorrow, so I'll probably like be present in there and like ask the question because I'm assuming I haven't like made any big brain ideas to make that deck because I'm assuming they're gonna do like a clarifier to be like that doesn't work that way. Because if it does work that way, that's going to be insane, especially since Bravos just got like 3 new ramp cards.
Literally, the last post right now in the Bravos thread on the altered form is user named MaxOU saying, yes, I've played Sakara Brew on Energy Bar a few times on BGA. It's incredible.
Okay.
Yep. So I think there's no problem here, Jordan. I think I'm rebuilding my Etsadian Surge deck as soon as we're done with this. I'm gonna have a good time. This seems absurd, and this might be something that has to be looked at the next update because this feels pretty crazy.
Yeah, and I thought it was good, and he does cost 7. But one of my locals, when I was talking to them about this yesterday, or not yesterday, it was like Tuesday. That's like multiple days ago. He said, "Yeah, it costs 7, but there are definitely uniques out there that still do the pushback that cost less than 7."
Yeah, sure. Oh man, this is wild. This is wild stuff. Cool. I, for one, welcome our new Bravos overlords.
Let's go. Bravos is my favorite deck in set 1. So I'm
going to switch my color to red now from green. No, I can't abandon Muna, but like, yeah, that's pretty crazy. Wow. Well, okay. Outside of absurd Eat Me Energy Bar synergies, of which there are plenty, I will say, in general, outside of even that.
Yeah.
Um, I I want to just talk a little bit about exhausting cards in reserve in general, and say that this mechanic rules like way harder than I thought it would.
Oh yeah.
Um, I thought, and I think we talked about this in the last episode, I thought this would be like, oh, a cute little soft interaction. We talked about that. It's like, it's a way to mess with the opponent without like just outright strongly sabotaging things and stuff. Um, this is tossed onto a lot of cards with already decent stats without much actual cost to what you're getting for the stats and everything. And it's really good that way. You're playing stuff that are like pretty reasonable stats, but also saying like, yeah, actually your whole turn is now a completely different plan because you cannot play this thing anymore. It's very different when like they sabotage your thing and you're like, okay, you got me. You spent half your turn to get rid of that thing. I spent half my turn to do something else now. But when it's like, you didn't really pay much and now my whole turn is sort of derailed, that's pretty strong. Has that been you had a similar experience, Jordan?
Yes and no. I found out that I do think that there's a fair amount of tech against it as well. However, it had saved me so many times when they didn't have the proper tech out and they were banking on replaying something, and you're just like, nah, how about you just tap that? You can't play that. And it turning off secondary abilities, support abilities is the big thing for me, because up until now there wasn't, outside of just raw sabotage, there wasn't a lot of interaction being able to stop opponents if they were able to set something up. Being able to just turn that off changes the game in a lot of ways, in good ways, because there's a lot of like stuff out there that sometimes you'd see it coming and there's just nothing you could do about it, and now you have a lot of outlets to be like, hey, I'm delaying this thing from being like crazy. There were times where I could, like, my opponent after at the end of the game was like, man, I was going to use this support ability to like reduce the cost of the thing, and then since you tapped it, I now didn't have any other plays, and that's why I passed after playing a single cost card, and I was banking on this one ability, and then you turned it off, and I wasn't expecting it, and like stuff like that is really neat. And of course,
I mean,
I was gonna say, and of course, it creates that very real oppressive, or not oppressive, isn't the right word, daunting task of making your opponent choose stuff. Because now, if they were expecting to empty their lot and they can't, now they might be forced to play an extra card from hand that at the end of turn, gonna go to reserve, and then they have a clogged reserve, adding 2 or 3 more. Now they have to discard 2 to 3 cards, and you make them have that terrible choice of like, what do I keep? What's going to help me here? Am I about to ditch the like tech piece that I need and not knowing it? Like, it works so well, but at the same time, it's not like overbearingly good, which is, I feel like it's in a perfect interaction spot.
Yeah, I feel like it felt really good. Like there were definitely times when I did it or people did it to me and I was like, yeah, okay, I wasn't going to do anything with that anyway. But I mean, I want to hit at what you were saying, which I think was a really, really smart thing to think about. But when you exhaust their stuff and then force them to play from hand and then they go over their reserve limit at end of turn, that is where it goes from being a sort of tacked on soft removal onto some already decent stats to actually having the net result of the same card advantage that a straight sabotage would have given you, except you didn't have to overpay for it. You just got it on your like Jack Frost or whatever, which was already like already like a 2/2 or 2/1/2 or something for 2. It's like barely a cost.
Yeah.
With Jack Frost, I'm just pulling up here. So yeah, he's a 2/1/2 for 2. So it's like, all right, fine. But yeah, when that causes you to then you exhaust something and then end of turn they end up having to sack something too, it's you really actually got that full like sabotage value just card for card. And it was, yeah, there just wasn't a real cost to it. So that's been really cool. That's been a lot of fun. And then exhausted resupply has felt really nice too, just because it's just kind of like it's tacked on there without as big of a stat hit, but you a lot of times when you resupply, it's like I I don't know what I'm gonna get to play anyway, so I'm not planning my turn around like guaranteed I'm gonna play this thing or whatever. So you can just kind of plan your turn around. Yeah, I'm just gonna get this extra card in my resupply in my reserve, just make sure I don't go over at end of turn. And then I get I get full value from it again for less cost on the card. So all that stuff has just felt really fun. You mentioned interaction, and like I think in constructed, it's going to be so faction dependent as to whether or not they can even interact with you. It's one thing in like sealed where you have 3 factions, like they probably have something that like can ready an exhausted card or plays off of exhausting something or whatever. But if you go up against like a Bravos deck or whatever in constructed, like why would they have anything to interact with it?
Yeah, for sure. That's one of the reasons I'm excited to transition to both sets merging together, because there's a lot of interesting.
Yeah.
I see a lot of interesting play patterns and a lot of interesting tech that got added with this. Like a small thing that I thought about is we kind of talked about it when we talked about the card the first time, but that jacket, the winter clothes, is gonna give a big boost to a lot of Lyra characters, because it turns those characters that were like, oh well, it's really good in this one thing and nothing else. Now it's really good in all stats. It's going to be very interesting. I'm excited to see how it progresses with the different variations of play styles and patterns, along with just some of the tech pieces that the lesser played characters kind of got a little bit of a boost here and there, which is really nice to see.
Winter clothes like got me multiple times, like multiple times. I would be like, okay, and then and let's see, and then like we tie here, like no, everything here's a 4, I win. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right, good job.
Yeah, because for me too, I forgot that I like in my head I had it because that was the most use case I could think of, is bringing characters that have 1 stat and the rest are zeros. So for some reason in my head, it only affected 0 stats and bumped them up, but it's all of them. So like there was a one point where I was like, oh yeah, I got you here, and he's like, no, the coat, and I was like, oh yeah, the coat just says all stats, not just zeros. Yeah. So like it made his 633 a 666, and I was like, you got me, I'm donezo.
Yep. Yeah, that's been really sick. In general, expedition permanents, I think, have been really good, actually. Like I felt like their impact has been really interesting, like we talked about, just like refreshing in the gameplay, but like also pretty strong, because you only lose them once they've achieved helping you win something, tends to be the case, right? Like the slay only goes away once you've won on that side. And when you win on that side, you double win, which is like why it's like, yeah. And people have already commented on Eat Me energy bars. We'll bring it up again one more time, but like the fact that it gives your thing gigantic means that you have to win on the side that the energy bars are in order to lose the energy bars, right? So the opponent has to specifically go to fight you on that side, which is then allowing you to just like win on the other side pretty much for free because you're gigantic. And it's easy for you to just commit to the other side and win that one and go, okay, cool, I'll lose this side then, so I keep winning on this side instead. And it's such a weird puzzle for the opponent to figure out. But yeah, I mean, in general, I think all of those expedition permanents, they felt really good, and I'm excited to try and slot some into decks now.
And the permanents have another effect that didn't dawn on me right away, but it makes me very excited. There was a handful of uniques in the first set that have the text, if you have, 1 or 2 or more permanents, that seemed okay and kind of hard to get, because at the time, a lot of the permanents that were in the game for each faction are kind of unwieldy unless you're playing specifically for them. Those add permanents that aren't expensive landmark ones that'll be easy to hit that threshold to enable those effects now.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, I think you're right. I mostly think of the ones that say if you control 1 or 2 landmarks, but are there ones that call out specifically permanents?
I remember seeing a handful of them that had just permanents. I know there is a bunch of them that are landmark permanents, but I think there was a handful that just said permanence, but I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just like dreaming that up. Um,
Yeah, that's just I'm not positive, but if so, that's obviously that's a huge boon as well. I mean, there's definitely stuff that affect permanence in general. Like, I think any uniques that discard a permanent now suddenly are like quite a bit more valuable than they were. Like they were pretty decent before because things like Haven would be like really strong, and you just want to be able to answer. Like if you've ever lost to a Catagear deck, you understand the value of destroying a permanent. But now I think we're just going to continue to see more and more of these get played because some of these landmark or some of these expedition permanents just like give you a 1/1/1 or a boost when you play them anyway. So you're not actually losing anything. And then they
mhm.
have an additional effect that's like pretty useful or whatever. So there's the one where your defenders don't have defender, which I think is like actually makes Golrang possibly playable now, which is exciting also. I think one of our locals really said it best. I believe this was Ian. So just shout out to Ian, one of our locals, who said, um, I think there's about 12 playable characters now instead of the like 5 that were there before. Um, which I think is totally right and really really good and exciting because I mean like from a competitive standpoint, right? Like all of them were playable before, but like from a competitive standpoint, there were certainly ones that rose above the others in Beyond the Gates. But I feel like there's a lot of cool things in Trial by Frost that will really push the viability of some of those other characters up. We just have to hope that they didn't like go over the top with some of these. I am totally on board with everyone who said that Sadi and Surge was good in set one. I totally agreed with that. But now I think Sadi and Surge is scary.
Yeah,
Like
there's a lot of
really
nice
scary.
support pieces for Sadi and Surge. It's gonna be great.
All right, Jordan, do you have any? We've talked for a little bit here, and I don't want to go too long. Do you have any last hits on this or anything? Anything else? Of course, we can save for a future episode. But anything else you thought about Trial by Frost from your pre-release experience?
There was one other thing, and this might just be I happen to be graced with a better sample size of overall good things. I'm not sure if they even did need changes. It just feels like they're better changes. From all the uniques that I've seen from my locals and from my personal polls, the uniques feel much better this time around. And by that, I mean, in set one, there was a lot of uniques that I had personally pulled or had seen pulled that I'll just say it, they seemed terrible. Like a lot of them seemed like my general benchmark is I want them to be at minimum as good as the rare. They don't have to have the same effects, but they at least need to be, pound for pound cost for what you get, roughly as good as the rare in that faction. And a lot of them in set one struggled to meet that benchmark, let alone surpass it. And everything in set two so far, outside of maybe one that I've seen, they're at least at worst as good as the rare or slightly different than the rare, but equally as playable as the rare. And like I said, I don't know if they actually changed anything or maybe the sample size in my region was just overall better, but I felt more excited about most of the uniques that I saw instead of in set
Hmm.
one where more than 50% of the time I'd open a unique and be initially excited and then read its effect and be like, this is unplayable. Why would I ever use this in a deck? For this time, I was like, I'm either really excited about it being pretty good, or I'm at least like, I see a use case for this because it works differently than its rare or common slot. Like it does equally powerful stuff, just in a different play style.
I will say that I think I've seen a decent chunk of mid to clunker uniques. And not a ton yet that are like really good. So it might be a sample size thing for you. In which case your area just had some really hot packs. Um, but that said, I have not opened a significant amount of Trial by Frost yet. That's that as of recording this, my opening stream is tomorrow, where I'm going to crack open a lot. I'm going to crack open 6 boxes in that one. I also have this content creator kit that I haven't opened yet. That's got some more packs. I'm gonna open a chunk of packs here, and I'll get a better feel for it then. But like, I mean, I do know that they want to tweak the algorithm. I think they did say at one point they want to reduce the number of kind of like bad, just bad uniques. which would be good. It doesn't need to go away completely. Like you don't need every unique to be like a $300 unique, because then nothing
for
actually
sure.
will be.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know if any unique should be $300, but that's a whole other can of worms. But yeah, I mean, I hope that's the case. I hope they've started to take some strides. If they haven't in this set, though, I would imagine by set 3 or 4 at the latest, they'll have had sort of remember, TCGs are slow moving ships, right? So any changes to the algorithm, they would have had to make pretty quick to be able to affect Trial by Frost. I think, but going forward, it's more likely that they could have done that, I think.
Yep. And the next set, when we get the gray faction, the unknown tribes.
That's what you think's coming in set 3?
Maybe not quite yet.
Yeah, I don't
be in
think,
the back. I feel like it'll be in the next set where they have a new heroes. Because then the new heroes will be the tribal leaders joining the different factions. So like the new Bravos, because they won't do I don't think they'll do a colorless hero, but the new set of heroes, I feel like the backstory will be the unnamed tribes are rejoining the fold, and they're like, we're going to join your factions, and here's a representative for each one, kind of deal.
Well, whether that's in set 3 or 4 or beyond, hopefully Yoshi can let us know at some point if Jordan was right about the new tribe joining the different factions. I'm going to close by just mentioning that we do indeed have a mailbag question this week. However, it is it's a question that we got an email from Kristen SK. So I'm just going to say, Kristen, that we have your mailbag question, but it is such a deep question that I think it might just be better served as like a full episode discussion. It's a question on the adoption of Altered in the US. And all of the reasonings that go into whatever the state of the game is and everything. And I thought about trying to throw it in here, but I'm like, we're just going to talk for at least half an hour on this anyway. So, Kristen, thank you so much for sending the question. We will answer it, but I think we're actually going to do you the solid of actually giving you the full discussion as a full future episode. It'll probably either be the next episode or the one after, one of the two, just depending on if we have other very, very pertinent things, time-sensitive things we want to talk about in the next one. Sound okay to you, Jordan?
Yeah, that sounds great. That's actually an interesting topic that I wanted to not necessarily discuss specifically, but I've had some thoughts on and some interesting, not necessarily opinions, but I have some interesting thoughts on where I thought it was going, and then how it's kind of changed, and then the new set kind of we'll get into it on the episode.
I think there's plenty to go into, and there's plenty of little components to this, so we'll give it its due time in a future episode. But otherwise, then I think that's going to wrap this up. I think we can throw our winter coats back on and head back out into the tundra that we actually live in here, but also of Trial by Frost. And I'm excited. I've got a little bit of editing work to do here tonight, so I probably can't do it tonight, but definitely once I crack open all this product on the live stream, I'm going to be itching to throw together some new decks and then start my favorite part of Altered, the unique hunt. I'm going to find some cool uniques, and I'm going to build some fun decks with them. Underrated uniques, unexplored ideas. I'm going to build some sick decks. Definitely a ton of fun. Jordan, any final thoughts, or should you want to lead us out of here?
I think that about covers it for today. So yeah, that was our fleeting thoughts. We thank you guys so much for watching and listening, and we look forward to talking with you again in about 2 weeks. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone. Stay warm.